"It was the best of times, it was the worst of times," wrote Charles Dickens, and no one understood this era better than he did. This was the time when the world began to speak English, not through culture, but through power, through economy, navy, army, and global trade. This was the era of Pax Britannica, and at the centre of it all was Queen Victoria. She was never meant to be queen. Her uncles died one after another, and the crown simply passed to her. At just 18 years old, she found herself at the top of an empire. Her coronation was chaotic and far from perfect, and despite her title, she rarely ruled directly. Real power belonged to Parliament. She was not a ruler. She was a symbol, an icon, an image, the embodiment of Britain. She could have married the future Tsar Alexander II. Instead, she chose her cousin, Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, and it was she who proposed to him. They spent their lives together, had 9 children, and dozens of grandchildren. She became known as the grandmother of Europe. After his death, she wore mourning for the rest of her life. And yet, her personal life held contradictions. Before pregnancy, she used opium and popular stimulants of the time, a sharp contrast to the strict morality her era is remembered for. And it is exactly this era that was later idealized. For example, Winston Churchill openly admired Victorian Britain, calling it a time when Britain stood at the centre of the world. This was an age of transformation. Railways connected the country, industry exploded, the first underground metro appeared. She became the face of the world's first postage stamp. The British economy dominated globally, even culture was shifting. For example, Scotch whisky rapidly grew in popularity. The British Empire reached its peak, the largest territorial expansion in history. And importantly, this happened without constant large-scale wars in Europe. The only major conflict there was the Crimean War. But beyond Europe, expansion was far from peaceful. The Opium Wars opened new markets. India became a key source of resources. This was an empire built on economy, navy, army and trade. By the end of her reign, sailing fleets were being replaced by steel war machines. And during this period, Queen Victoria was proclaimed Empress. Not just a queen, an empress. But this empire was not built on progress alone. It was built on exploitation, on control, on extraction. India and other colonies paid a high price for this dominance. While Britain grew rich, other regions lost resources and lives. Morality and reality were two very different worlds. People loved Victoria, even though there were at least 6 assassination attempts against her. She ruled longer than any monarch before her. But by the end of her era, the world was beginning to change. The German Empire was rising. The United States and the Russian Empire were gaining power. And for the first time, Britain faced real competition. She died at the age of 81. And with her, an entire era came to an end. An era that would be called the Victorian Age, the good old England. But was it ever truly good? Or just a carefully constructed legend, hiding an empire of power, control, and profit? Subscribe. History is rarely what it seems.